Hello and welcome to AWS Made Easy. This is the show where we talk about all things AI, but FinOps, cost optimization, all on AWS. My name is Stephen Barr.
Hi, everyone. I'm Rahul Subramaniam, and we have such an interesting keynote to talk about today.
Yes, this was the day one of reInvent 2020-25 with Matt Garman. It was a good keynote. I want to say, I don't want to brag too much, but I think our predictions were pretty good.
I think I would agree. Having watched it live and then going back to some of my notes, and yeah, I think we were very, very close on a lot of this stuff.
Awesome. Well, the way I want to structure the episode today is it's like a React series. So we're going to show a few clips. We're going to talk about them. We're first going to go like, what was the big picture? Now, when we first started talking about what we thought was going to be in this, I think the main idea, of course, the theme of the conference was agentic AI, and of course, how to make that work in enterprise. So, on the big picture, how do you think they did?
I think they're getting closer to the end goal. Just being very honest, I think still things are very scattered in the AWS world, but not just in the AWS world, in the rest of the world as well. All the technologies are emerging so fast, so quickly. It's the building blocks haven't become foundational yet. They are still evolving, because of which whatever higher order, tooling or solution you create seems to become obsolete in a matter of, a couple of months. And so the challenge is really going to be, are these higher order tools and functions and stuff going to survive the test of this onslaught of new models, onslaught of new ways of doing things, and onslaught of new capabilities and tools? So that's going to be the real challenge that I'm pretty excited to see what happens.
So did Agent Core hit the right level of abstraction, or did they code themselves into a corner? So, well, let's jump into the outline. We have a presentation that we've made to go along with this, kind of a high-level overview. I would say there's about 12 distinct sections in this talk. The first one being, he introduced Matt Garman with the state of affairs of where AWS, it's incredible when you zoom out, $132 billion in annual revenue, which is bigger than the GDP of a lot of countries.
This is very true.
This is a large enterprise. I like how it's the majority of not just unicorns. I like how he said also startups. Sometimes it feels like they're always talking about the Fortune 500 or the Fortune 100 or the Fortune 5. And I like how they also said startups are also doing this, and they haven't lost sight of that.
Correct. No, I think it goes without saying, there are a lot of building blocks that have stood the test of time and are the default go-tos for most organizations when they get started. The testing ground is going to be AI, to see how much of AWS native AI actually gets used by all of them.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think what I took away from this session, which actually brings me back to what our guest Banjo Obiyomi said, is like, it is never a better time to be a builder.
That's very true.
So I want to play this first clip and then we'll react to it. I think that set the stage for the rest of his keynote. So I'll put this here. Let's put the first clip on.
So why do we do this? What motivates us? Why are we just as passionate today as we were 20 years ago when we first launched AWS? What drives us every day is giving you all the freedom to invent. This has been our motivation since when we started AWS.
Okay, so this is what's. I think I cut that clip off a little early, but that's the motivation since they started AWS to facilitate developers. And I think that they have very many very corporate launches, but I think Agent Core is one of the things that's going to be useful no matter what scale you're at.
Yeah, and I think they did a good job of kind of pitching it explicitly for all tiers and showcasing, instances where startups could use it, you can use it in production, and it scales from a tiny little organization to a very, very large organization as well. And I think that has tremendous value.
Yeah, absolutely. He started out with, from the bottom level infrastructure. That was interesting. He's talking about the AI factories. That was the idea that you could actually produce it's basically like all AWS infrastructure, but put inside customers' own data centers.
Correct.
That was interesting. What do you think about that one?
I think there are a number of organizations that don't feel very safe with their data, etc., leaving the organization. And till recently, you could never have that, AWS, the way they operate it, the way they run it, all of that stuff is very custom to the way they do things, right? So it's got to be in their data centers if you really want to leverage the benefits of AWS. But they're doing something with their racks and stacks in such a way that they can ship them to you. You can run them in your own data center. And AWS will remotely manage everything for you, which is pretty incredible. They started off with some of the telecom infrastructure in a similar manner some time ago. And now they can literally manage, all of your infrastructure if you wanted it within your data center. So I think this is the way to go to expand the cloud. The cloud is now closer than it used to be. And I think that's definitely a plus. I wouldn't recommend it for startups, though.
Yeah, absolutely. This is going to be a very, a heavy thing. It was cool just for the numbers. They were talking about how they were using the Trainium to, how much Trainium investment they're building. The Trainium is AWS custom silicon processor for training models, and they're building out 30 data centers, each with 500,000 Trainiums, basically just to train the next version of Claude. Correct. Which makes you think wow, it's incredible. To think the scale of this.
Yeah, the scale is just absolutely staggering. And I think they said they were going to have a few million of these, or a few million of these are already deployed, and they're going to have tons more coming up. I think it was 1.4 gigawatts of capacity that they were adding, if I'm not mistaken. I'm trying to remember the numbers from the keynote.
I don't have it. Yeah, it is a lot. And speaking of what you said about the rack, one of the predictions that we made came through. We were going to get a Trainium 4.
Yep.
So they announced Trainium 3 Ultra servers, which are 5x more tokens per megawatt, and then a preview of the Trainium 4. And I thought the way they did it was actually kind of impactful. Let me put this on the screen. They actually brought out
Trainium 3 Ultra servers are now generally available. Now, these Ultra servers are our most advanced, containing the very first 3-nanometer AI chip in the AWS cloud. Trainium 3 offers the industry's best price performance for large-scale AI training and inference. Now, we've talked about the incredible results that we've seen with Trainium 2 this past year, but Trainium 3 Ultra servers bring another huge leap forward. 4.4x more compute, 3.9 times the memory bandwidth, and this one is super important, 5 times more AI tokens per megawatt of power. And as a special surprise, I have a rack of our Ultra servers on stage with me today.
That was fun for them.
Yeah. They're definitely very, very interesting to see how they organize the new racks now. For those of us who started off
Trainium 3 Ultra servers
old school setups, this is a remarkable difference.
How clean it is.
Not just how clean, but everything is water cooled, everything or liquid cooled, and just the ventilation, air cooling, the way everything is set up. Plus, it's kind of almost like a entire system on chip. So you've got memory to processor to cache, all of that being on just molded into one chip. It's remarkable how large the chips are getting now. And Trainium is one of the larger ones. I think it's kind of the size of my palm, if I'm not mistaken. So it's pretty huge.
And all of that generates so much heat and so much power.
Correct.
Okay, and then here's in the presentation, like it said, 30 facilities, each with 500,000 Trainium chips for next generation Claude. So it's pretty cool to see that investment in Amazon Silicon continuing to play out. Now, Trainium, you would use it if you're training your own model. So most customers, would say, aren't using Trainiums a lot, but the people who are using them are using a lot of them.
Yeah. But it was also interesting, the comment that Matt made, which is they thought Trainium was for training, but you still see a lot of customers using Trainium for inference because it is still an incredibly efficient chip to perform inference as well.
Okay, I missed that. Okay, so there's still, I mean, there is an inference-specific chip, but people are also using Trainium for that.
Correct. So what Matt said was that they hadn't forecasted this kind of use for inference, but as it turns out, the Trainium chip itself is really good for inference as well. So they're also using Trainium for a lot of inference-related work.
Interesting. Okay. Well, I mean, that makes sense. And it'll probably lead to the next iteration of the Inferentium. I was having trouble pronouncing that.
Inferentia chips.
Yeah. Yes, the Inferentia chips. That will probably, whatever they learn from that, will help that. And it's pretty neat that they have a very short cycle time in this physical hardware because of the investments they've made in producing these things and getting them out to customers. Let's go on to part 3. This is Bedrock Nova. This is another prediction that we got right. We had anticipated a Nova 2, and it turns out that's exactly what we got. First let's talk about the open weights models. So there's open weights models from Google, Minimax, NVIDIA. This is open weight, meaning the actual weights of the parameters are like the weights in the individual neurons. They're actually available. They can be inspected.
They're publicly available. And so you can host this anywhere you want. And it's also available on Bedrock.
Yes. Okay.
Then, plus then they went on to announce Mistral 3, and also some incredible new Nova models.
All right, well, let's play let me cue up the video for the announcement of the new Nova 2. Here we go.
And today, we're making Nova even better. Announcing a new generation of Nova with Nova 2. Nova 2 delivers cost-optimized low-latency models with frontier-level intelligence. The Nova 2 family includes Nova 2 Lite, which is our fast and cost-effective reasoning model suitable for a broad set of workloads, and Nova 2 Pro, which is our most intelligent reasoning model for highly complex workloads. We're also introducing Nova 2 Sonic, which is our next-generation speech-to-speech model that enables real-time, human-like conversational AI for all of your applications. Now, Nova 2 Lite delivers incredible price performance for many workloads that we actually see our customers wanting to deliver in production. Nova 2 Lite compares really favorably in industry benchmarks to models like Claude Haiku 4.5, GPT-5 Mini, and Gemini Flash 2.5. In particular, Nova 2 Lite excels at things like instruction following, tool calling, generating code, and extracting information from documents, often matching or exceeding the performance that we see from these comparable models at an industry-leading cost performance. We think that Nova 2 Lite is going to be a real workhorse and is going to be really popular for a wide variety of.
Okay, so that is the Nova 2 announcement. It was interesting. At our other show, in the AI First show, we were having an office hours in our Discord, and my colleague Leonardo was talking about the different models he uses. Now, I sometimes fall into the trap of just going for Sonnet 4.5 all the time, which is, it's very limiting. And it's also, maybe at a personal scale, it's okay, but it's kind of like using your Corvette to go get the groceries. Like a lot of times it's way too much model, and that doesn't scale, right? If you're using, if you've got 100 agents running in parallel, you want to make sure you're using just the right amount of model for your task. And the Nova models are are typically pretty good.
Yeah.
I'm reaching for them more often now as a matter of habit. And so now I'm looking forward to using Nova 2. What's been your experience with Nova?
Yeah, I think in general, Pro and Sonic, I think are getting to be comparable to, I'd say, Claude 4, somewhere between Claude 4 and 4.5. They've already crossed the threshold that Claude 4 did. The reasoning aspects of it, sometimes I feel like Claude 4.5 or even Gemini 3 are a bit better on that front. But for a vast number of cases, Nova to Lite Pro and Sonic are actually pretty good. I think from a speed standpoint, there are a few other models that are a little better than Sonic. I haven't tried Nova 2 Sonic, so that's going to be a new experiment. But I actually was most excited about Nova 2 Omni. So Nova 2 Omnis, I don't know whether we have a clip of that announcement.
Yes, I do. That's
okay. Why don't we pull that up?
Okay, here we go.
Take, for example, this keynote. If you wanted a model to try to understand all that was going on in the keynote today, you'd want to get the nuance and understanding of everything that we're saying. That means you'd have to listen to what I'm saying. You'd have to understand the contents of all these slides. You'd have to be able to watch the videos and understand what's going on and what we're showing. Now let's say you want to take that same model and produce a summary output for your sales team, where it had a summary of all the launches we announced today, along with some images and marketing material. Now, if you wanted to do this, you could, right? This is possible today, but it means testing a wide variety of different models, stitching them all together, and trying to accomplish this outcome, which is totally doable, but is quite hard. It'd be easier if you had a single model that could do all of that. And that's why I'm excited to announce Nova 2 Omni. It's a unified model for multimodal reasoning and image generation. Nova 2 Omni is the industry's first reasoning model that supports text, image, video, and audio input, and then supports text and image generation output. So that's 4 new industry-leading models from Amazon Nova.
Yeah. So this one makes it very, very interesting. There are very few models out there that can do all 4 modes as input and then reason about it. So very excited to try this out. And we'll definitely have a few experiments to share over here in the next few days.
Certainly. That would be, and if it is, the great part about Nova 2 Omni is going to be the price point.
Yeah.
It's going to be very, very efficient to use. And is it going to be the absolute best in class every single time? Maybe, maybe not.
We'll have to see.
If you're going to be extracting, if you're going to be doing normal work, normal in the new era of what's possible with these models, yeah, go for that first.
Right.
And you'll probably get better availability, I'm guessing. You still get throttled up when you're using Claude from time to time.
Yeah. Yeah, it'd be interesting to see how they operate and what limits and throttles and stuff you're going to have. I haven't explored these models yet since they were launched yesterday. So very excited to try these out. We'll have more detailed stats on each one of these.
Definitely. Well, building on the Nova theme, in the next part of Matt's talk, he talked about, let's go to the next slide here, Nova Forge. This was interesting. The idea of Nova Forge. And I want to understand these model checkpoints better.
Yeah. So Nova Forge actually got announced some time ago. I was going back to my notes, and maybe it was something that was internal and just shared with us, or maybe it was public. I'm not sure. But Nova Forge has been, in the discussions, and we've been looking at Nova Forge for a while, maybe 3 or 4 months at least. And Nova Forge is interesting in that you have different model checkpoints. They basically use the model and keep adding new training to it and keep moving through its spaces to make it better and better every single iteration. Each one of those iterations basically has a checkpoint, or within certain iterations where they feel like the results are good, they're going to checkpoint those. And those are then available for you as base models to then fine-tune your data on top of that. And that is what is very interesting about it. You now get to have frontier models that deeply understand your specific, product, your specific content, all of that stuff, and your specific process, and you can deploy them in Bedrock the same way you would deploy any other model.
Let's have a look at the clip from the announcement. I think they gave some really neat examples. Let's have a look at Matt's clip.
You could build your own model from scratch, include your own data in that. But of course, this is super expensive. And frankly, you probably don't have all of the data that you would need to build the general intelligence in the model. And then even if you did, you may not have the in-house expertise to pre-train a frontier model anyway. So that's probably not very practical for most companies. What most people do instead is they start with an open weights model and you modify them. And there's lots of ability to customize there. You can tune weights with techniques like fine-tuning, reinforcement learning, and you can try to build something that really focuses on your use case. However, it turns out there's actually limits to how effective this is as well. It's really hard to teach a model a completely new domain that it wasn't already pre-trained on. And it turns out the more you customize models, the more you add a bunch of data in post-training, these models tend to forget some of that interesting stuff that it learned earlier, the core reasoning. It's a little bit like humans trying to learn a new language. When you start when you're really young, it's actually relatively easy to pick up. But when you try to learn a new language later in life, it's actually much, much harder. Model training is kind of like this too. Now, there's been some pretty cool things done with the limitability that you have to tune these open weights models, but you can only go so far. Today, you just don't have a great way to get a frontier model that deeply understands your data and your domain. But what if it was possible? What if you could integrate your data at the right time during the training of a frontier model, and then create a proprietary model that was just for you? I think this is actually what customers really want. And so we asked ourselves, why not? And today I'm excited to announce Amazon Nova Forge. Nova Forge is a new service that introduces the concept of open training models. With Nova Forge, you get exclusive access to a variety of Nova training checkpoints, and then you get the ability for you to blend in your own proprietary data together with an Amazon curated training data set at every stage.
Okay, so that is the Nova Forge. I was thinking of an analogy, and Rahul, tell me if this makes sense or not. It's almost like, okay, if you're raising a kid, they say, okay, I don't have to teach them. There's certain things that every kid has to do, but they say, okay, at 5th grade, I want to make sure they do this. At high school, I want to make sure they take this class, and this class. I'll check in again at college to make sure that they major in this. And then, you have certain checkpoints in the training process where you can inject certain biases and experiences and things like that, where you're not having to do the entire thing from diapers to college graduate, but you can have control over certain key moments. Is that the idea of these model checkpoints?
Kind of, and I really like your kids analogy. It's like ordering a kid and saying, I want a kid past the troublesome 2s, and that's where I'm going to start. Like, I don't want to deal with everything else before that.
Yeah, once they've graduated with their major in this,
then I'm ready to take over parenthood.
Well, one of the examples they gave was Reddit, and I've used Reddit quite a bit. It's the communities, they form their own languages. Like each subreddit almost has a domain-specific language, and then there's Reddit-wide conventions. And you could think, couldn't you just explain all this in the context? But it's actually quite a bit of information. Reddit's been around for a long time, and it has its own culture and its own things. And you could write a giant prompt that wastes a bunch of context.
Yeah.
Or you could, like what they say here. So to use the kid analogy again, you'd say, okay, once you get to high school, browse Reddit a bunch. Go to college, then browse Reddit a bunch and participate in some community. Don't raise your kid that way. Right. But if it's a model and you want to say this, you have a great understanding of Reddit, that could be pretty cool.
Yeah.
Without having to waste all this time on context.
Correct. And I think there's some very interesting use cases for this scenario. we were looking at how much data is required to train these models and so on. But it's way simpler than starting from scratch to train or fine-tune your model. So pretty excited about Nova Forge, actually. I think there'll be a lot of takers for this.
Definitely. After this, and I'm excited to see how we use it. We'll report back if we have a good use case for it. Okay.
Awesome.
After this, there was a customer spotlight. John Cudera from Sony. He came in and talked about creativity, about personalizing the Sony assets, and how to kind of the interaction between creators and fans using AI. Then we got into Agent Core. So yeah. Agent Core is, well, actually, I have an introductory clip for Agent Core just to talk about all of the different things it does. So I think that will be useful kind of level set here. So let me put this on stage.
Excited about it. All right, so this is Agent Core, the agentic platform that's powering the next wave of agents. We're helping you move quickly to get your agents into production without compromising or making any sacrifices, which this is what we're all about. We want you to move fast so you have the broadest set of capabilities to build for your own customers. Today, we're really excited that we've added 2 new powerful capabilities in policy and evaluations, and I'm really excited to see how this unlocks some real powerful.
Okay, so that was, if we look at the Agent Core, out all these details, what came into this talk was the runtime, observability, memory, code interpreter, managed browser, and identity. Yeah. And then they've added the policy gateway and the evaluations.
Yeah. And this one was interesting because evaluating agents is one of the hardest things you have to do to make sure that they always behave the way you expect them to.
Should we jump into the... Actually, I think I have a video for the policy evaluation. Let me put that on screen. It's... Here we go. Agent Core, policy Agent Core.
In place to publish and procure pre-built agents, tools, solutions, and professional services. And this is where AWS partners can help you all move even faster. We're really excited what customers have been able to do with Agent Core, but we're far from done. One big challenge that we've seen when you're building agents is how do you get them to behave predictably and in line with your intents? What makes agents powerful is this ability to reason and act autonomously. But that also makes it hard for you to have complete confidence that your agents aren't going to stray way out of bounds. This is a little bit like raising a teenager. I currently have 2 awesome teenagers myself at home. Now, as your kids get older, you have to start giving them more autonomy and freedom so that they can learn, or adulting, as they like to call it. But you also want to put some ground rules in place to avoid major issues. Think about when your kids start driving. This is this current situation that I'm in. All of a sudden, the kids have all of this autonomy. There's a ton of things that they can go and do by themselves, but you still kind of want to have those guardrails in place. Like you have to be home by a certain time, or you don't want to drive more than, say, 5 miles an hour over the speed limit, things like that. One way you can actually build trust in agents is by making sure that they have the right permissions to access your tools and your data. Agent Core Identity provides a great way to do this today. But while permissions on your tools that your agents can access is a good start, what you really want to be able to control is the specific actions that your agents can or cannot take with those tools. If actions like, what is the agent going to do with those tools? How can they use them? Who are the tools for? And today, customers struggle with this. You can embed policies directly in your agent's code, but because agents generate and execute their own code on the fly, these safeguards are really best effort and can only provide you weak guarantees, and they're really difficult to audit. In practice, this means today you can't, with certainty, control what your agent does or does not do, while also giving it the agency to go and complete these workflows on its own. As a result, most customers feel that they're blocked from being able to deploy agents to their most valuable, critical use cases. And today, that's why we're announcing Policy in Agent Core. Policy provides you with real-time deterministic controls for how your agents interact with your enterprise tools and your data. Now you can set up these policies that can define which tools and data and which tools that your agents can access, but also how they access them. So whether they're APIs or Lambda functions or MCP servers or popular third-party services like Salesforce or Slack. And you also can then define what actions they can perform and under what conditions.
Okay, that was a bit long-winded, but I think, it really set the stage for how difficult a problem this is. And if you watch a coding agent running, right, you could say, don't read my .env file. And you could block that file from being read, and it's going to go cat.env. And it's going to read that. It's really hard to stop it from doing things.
Correct.
And that's in a very limited scope.
Exactly. So I actually like this ecosystem that they've created of different tools that agents kind of need to operate properly and within the guardrails of an enterprise application. So couldn't be more excited about these. We've got to try them out and see how well they do and how they actually implement these specific details.
Yeah, that's the big question is, what is the implementation? Is it going to work? And the bet that they're doing is that, okay, if you use AWS, you can use these agents in enterprise, and you're not going to have these massive, it should protect you from these massive failures. And to get an idea of what those are, check out, we have an upcoming episode in the AI First Show with Jessica Smith, an AI lawyer, who's talked about some of the cases where AI has done, silly things, right? Like a chat bot for a car dealership agreeing to sell a car for $1, right? And that was a real thing that happened. And you can use things like policy for Agent Core and also Agent Core evaluations to make sure that it doesn't do that, or if it does it, it's caught very quickly and you can take action.
Correct.
Actually, I have the Agent Core eval clip.
Yeah, let's bring that up as well.
Your agent behavior in real time, and then quickly react if you see them doing something.
I see. They were covering each other up. It is this one
that you don't like. We think we can make this a lot better. Today, I'm excited to announce Agent Core Evaluations. Evaluations is a new Agent Core service that helps developers continuously inspect the quality of their agent based on real-world behavior. Evaluations can help you analyze agent behavior for specific criteria, like the ones I mentioned: correctfulness, helpfulness, harmfulness. And they come with 13 pre-built evaluators for common quality dimensions. Of course, you can always create your own custom scoring system with your own preferred prompts and models as well. And you can easily evaluate agents in this testing phase to correct any issues before you end up deploying them broadly. So now, if you're going to upgrade to a newer version of a model, as an example, you run your evaluations to evaluate your agent. And you want to make sure that it maintains the same level of helpfulness, for example, that you have in your current release. You can actually also use evaluations in production to catch any of those hard-to-find quality degradations really quickly. You'll see your results in CloudWatch right alongside your Agent Core observability insights. And evaluation automates, or the key thing here is that Agent Core evaluation automates what used to take specialized expertise into and a bunch of infrastructure heavy lifting into something that everyone can access and allows you to continually improve the quality of your.
Okay, so that is Agent Core evaluations. I think the useful thing here is that you don't have to build out this giant harness of how to test your agents and how to observe your agents, because they've already built that out for you.
Correct.
Cool. Well, the next section, they talked about frontier agents. Let me put this back on. This is kind of a new. Have you heard this? Is this their term?
I think they've extended the concept of frontier models to something called frontier agents, where you basically have a set of state-of-the-art agents that do things that no one else kind of does. And there's going to be competing innovations that will happen across different organizations in these domains. So you're going to see different organizations come up with new DevOps agents, different, data analysis agents, or even security agents. And so they're calling them frontier agents. I think this is a new term that they just created, but it's likely to be used very analogous to frontier models.
And the idea with frontier agents is that they're supposed to be able to run for hours or days. They should be able to power very highly autonomous workflows, require very little human interaction. And the first one that they introduced was the Kiro agent. So Kiro is, well, let's take a step back from that. Kiro is their official, is the AWS spec-driven IDE. So the differentiator of Kiro is that you write a spec, and then from the spec, it generates a requirements document. From the requirements document, you generate a list of tasks, and you iterate on those three for a little while, make sure it looks good, and then you tell Kiro, okay, go ahead and do it, and it will go ahead and go through and create all of those tasks. Let's have a look at Matt's discussion of Kiro. I thought that was pretty cool. I'll put this on screen.
We're so excited about the impact that Kiro is having on making developers' lives better each and every day. And I've frankly been amazed at the impact that this development velocity has seen inside of Amazon. In fact, we've been so blown away that last week, all of Amazon decided to standardize on Kiro as our official AI development environment internally. We took a look at all of the tools out there in the market, and we recognized that the best way for us to make our developers faster and more productive was to double down on Kiro. And many of you all are rapidly doing the same. Now I want to take a quick moment and dive deeper into one of the stories we heard in this video, because I think the details are pretty eye-opening. Now, this was a quote from Anthony, one of our distinguished engineers. Now, Anthony was working on a significant re-architecture project, and he and the team originally thought that they would need about 30 developers working for 18 months to complete this work. Now, Anthony and the team were intrigued by the potential of agentic AI and the potential for it to really supercharge their output. So they decided that they were going to fully leverage Kiro to deliver the project. It turned out as the team started really digging in and seeing the full potential of agentic tools, it was better than they expected. And they saw that by leaning in on agentic development, a much smaller team could actually deliver incredible results. Instead of taking 30 developers 18 months to complete the project, they delivered the entire re-architecture with only 6 people in 76
days. So that's really cool. So Kiro, and another plug for another show, AI First Show, we have the inventor of Kiro, Renee Brandel, who since went on to form another company called Casco. That episode, just finishing the editing, so have a look for that one. I'll put the link in the description when it's available. The Kiro, that was pretty neat to see Amazon take a very opinionated stance on development.
Correct.
And on how this is going to do, because spec-driven development is very different than your typical vibe coding, where vibe coding almost feels like a video game, where you're kind of, you're dealing with stuff as it comes up and you're adjusting and tweaking and it's fun, where spec-driven development feels a lot more slow and intentional. Well, slow in the sense that you're doing all the thinking up front.
Yep.
And then actually we had a great episode of this show, AWS Made Easy, with Yehuda Cohen a couple of months ago now, talking about Kiro and how to kind of leverage spec-driven development. So I'll put a link to that as well. One thing, Matt gave 3 tips for using Kiro effectively. It was number 1, you move from babysitting to directing. So when you're using something like Claude Code, you're interacting with it very quickly. Whereas with Kiro, you want to give it a direction and let it go. And then the second piece of advice he gave was scale out. So have multiple Kiros running all the time. And then number 3 is you want to give the agents more and more autonomy. So if you can have lots of agents and they're all can run for hours on end, that means you have a lot of work getting done without you babysitting it and watching it. And so that's where they brought in this idea of frontier agents. So I'll put in, and then the agent they introduced first was the Kiro autonomous agent.
Yep.
So I'll put this on the screen.
That is the Kiro autonomous agent. The Kiro agent is an agent that transforms how developers and teams build software, vastly increasing your developers' team's capacity to invent. The Kiro autonomous agent runs alongside your workflow, maintaining context and automating development tasks so that your team never loses momentum. You simply assign it complex tasks from the backlog, and it independently figures out how to get that work done. Kiro can now autonomously tackle a full range of things your developer might need, from delivering new features to triaging bugs, even improving code coverage. And all of this takes place in the background so that your engineers can stay in their flow state, focusing on the big ideas.
So that was Matt's discussion of the Kiro autonomous agent. The other ones that he talked about were looking at my notes here, the security agent and the DevOps agents. The idea is that these are other agents that are monitoring your code for security and DevOps related issues. And this is happening in parallel to your development. So as your code base is evolving, ideally with maybe 10 or 20 or 100 or 1,000 Kiro autonomous agents churning, it's also checking for security, for DevOps issues. And it's pretty exciting where you see where this is all going. And you can see other agents fitting in to this. Maybe that an agent that checks how you're using AI, or an agent that looks at computational complexity and make sure you never use an order n squared algorithm or something like that. You can see there's other agents that could be in there that could be looking for very specific things and trained it very well.
Absolutely. Now, it's remarkable what a team of agents can actually accomplish versus a single agent. And I think that is going to be the pattern going forward. So I see huge value in wherever you can apply these very domain-specific agents that work together to do some amazing stuff.
Definitely. The last thing he did this, he called it a rapid-fire round, and he actually put up a 10-minute LCD clock, like a shot clock. Talked about a bunch of interesting developments. What I thought was funny, like they announced all these huge, new instance types, and it was neat. But let's kind of expect that now, right?
Correct.
They raised the S3 object limit to 50 terabytes. So whoever's putting in a 50 terabyte blob into S3, you can now.
Actually, the S3 vector going GA was actually really neat. The vector store being available in S3. That I think is pretty neat because S3 has always been one of these super easy data stores to deal with. And now that vector stores are also available as part of that setup, makes it very, very cool.
Definitely. You got the CloudWatch unified data store. So CloudWatch is going to be able to store objects, to look for threat detection and monitoring. And then there was a very big and very exciting announcement. I'll put this on screen. This one people have been waiting for a long time. And finally,
you raise your hand, don't worry. But I know that many of you out there are still supporting some legacy SQL Server and Oracle databases. Getting off of them is hard, but at least AWS makes it easier to manage them. We see you out there, and don't worry, we're here to help. One thing I hear from many of you is that your legacy databases have grown very large over time. They're actually bigger than what we support in RDS. So I'm excited to announce we're increasing the storage capacity for RDS for SQL Server and Oracle from 64 terabytes to 256 terabytes. This also delivers a 4x improvement in IOPS and IO bandwidth. This is going to make it a lot easier to migrate existing workloads from on-prem to scale them on AWS. We also want to provide you with more controls to help you optimize your SQL Server licenses and manage your costs. So we're doing a couple of things. Starting today, you can specify the number of vCPUs that are enabled for your SQL Server database instance. This helps you reduce your per CPU licensing costs that you get from Microsoft. And today, we're also adding support for SQL Server Developer Edition, so you can build and test your applications with no licensing fee. Oh, the loop music's coming on. All right, that means I only have a few seconds left. But there's one last thing that I think all of you are going to love. Several years ago, we launched compute savings plans as a way to simplify making commitments across our entire set of compute offerings. And since that day, I've regularly been asked, when can I get a unified savings plan for databases? And here it is. Starting today, we're launching database savings plans.
Nice.
These can save you up to 35% across all your usage for database services.
all of our FinOps friends on LinkedIn were very excited about this one. So that's been in the works for a while. I'm sure we're going to talk to Rick at some point to understand how that came to be. Looking forward to doing that. All right, let's wrap this section up. I think my perspective on this, I was happy to see the focus on getting agents into the mainstream. I'm glad that this is stuff that was working for startups and enterprise. It wasn't all, just for the Fortune 100.
Yeah.
It was neat to see a very opinionated take on something as controversial as how development should be done. So that was neat. And it makes me want to lean more into that, just because now if that's Amazon's official way of doing it, then it's going to be supported, and there's going to be a bit of a culture that's going to develop around that and best practices that will be coming out. Because that was one of the questions that we had with earlier was, well, how detailed should a spec be? And how do you make a good one? How do you make sure it's consistent? And my other learning from this is just lean into agent core. And that's where the investment is in this space. So would you do that? What about you? What was your most spiky perspective on this opening keynote?
So I think I had two important takeaways. Number one is I actually, for the first time, see AWS be a lot more opinionated about things than they've ever been. And two is I think they've gone back to their strength where they want to be the plumbing for AI, or they want to be, if you remember Werner Vogel's keynote from years ago, where he declared AWS is going to be the plumbing for the internet. I think the new model is AWS is going to be the plumbing for AI. Anything at scale and anything that's important enough to be deployed, they've got all the bases covered to make sure that you've got all the building blocks, foundational, stuff that is required to build these production workloads. It's all there for you to leverage and use. I think in the middle, they were slightly lost in trying and compete with building the best of the LLMs. While that continues to be a pursuit, I think they've kept that as a side project, but fundamentally they've gone back to their core of being an amazing infrastructure organization, building for developers, building at scale, and laying the roadmaps and the patterns that developers can follow to kind of build out awesome applications.
Absolutely. Well, we have a few more. This was just the first of the keynotes. There are several more that are coming. And the neat thing is they are on the AWS YouTube. So I'll put this on screen briefly. Let's see, share there. Okay. If you go to Amazon Web Services, the Amazon Web Services channel, you can see the keynotes that will be that are yet to come. So the next one up are Swami Sivasubramanian's and Ruba Borno's that are both tomorrow. And then day after, we have Peter DeSantis and Werner Vogel's to close out reInvent. So those are coming. Excuse me. Those will be on the 4th.
That's awesome. We're going to be looking forward to it, and we'll definitely cover our thoughts on all of these and share them with you.
Yeah, definitely. And you see the product launches starting to fill out. So it's pretty neat. All right. Well, we will see you all next time. Thank you for being here, and we will catch you again with more reInvent intelligence reporting. It's probably tomorrow. Take care.
Thanks, everyone. Bye-bye.
Bye.